And then what'll happen, like the PUC, that is the most captive agency you could have. I mean, some of the members of the PUC were lobbyists for Shell Oil. That's who sits on that. We have to be very careful to not allow that happen to hydrogen.
And I guess then the question is, how do we do that? How do we keep the PUC from not putting their foot on the neck of the development of hydrogen? Because I would imagine the powers that be in the oil industry and other industries may not want to have competition from another energy source.
They are trying really hard to take over hydrogen. You know, we have this thing called ARCHES, which is for getting California's hub for hydrogen. I would like to see ARCHES be the regulatory body for hydrogen, and that's all they do. You know, with a clear legislative purpose of expanding hydrogen, not suppressing it. You know?
Well, what's Kevin McCarthy doing, the Speaker of the House, to help us out here in California to get some of these things like the hydrogen hubs and some of the IRA money working to our benefit here in California?
Let's just say there was a reason I spent 3 days in Washington.
Well, I hope you're leaning on him hard.
As hard as I can.
Okay, well, yeah, it's important for the Republican Party to wake up and see the business sense behind it. I see governors and senators on the East Coast who are in Republican states welcoming some of the environmentally based businesses there. It's unfortunate that the rhetoric hasn't matched kind of the sense of welcoming on the business side.
I've learned over the years, don't look at what they say, look at what they do. Mm-hmm. You know? The way, especially with the internet, the way it is now, you have to say stupid stuff all the time just to stay in office. You know? But how are they voting? You know, and we'll know that very soon.
I know that you're working with Japan on hydrogen, and I know that they're kind of on the cutting edge of making hydrogen a real useful commodity for transportation. Tell us a little bit about that.
Transportation and power. You know, I mean, remember what happened? I've actually visited Fukushima. I've been at that plant that blew up. Had to leave because the radiation levels were rising again. Their experience, you know, with nuclear is such that they could never get the support to put it in, even though the new plants are relatively safe. I mean, they're not nearly as dangerous as the current ones. So they don't have any options. They don't have an oil industry. They're at the mercy of the oil markets, and always have been. Remember why World War II started. You know, their access to oil was stopped. That was, what, 1930s. You know, that's always, look what's happening in Russia. I mean, ultimately, most of the sins of the world seem to be traced back to that. You know, it is. We should recognize that. So Japan doesn't have lobbyists and captive agencies and a force pushing against hydrogen. That's why they're blossoming with it. And most of the patents that allow this to work comes from Japan. And they will be doing a major investment in Lancaster. You know, at least every month, if not twice a month, I'm meeting with Japanese officials. You know, I've been to Japan. I'm going back in October. I'll be meeting with the Interior Minister. They take it very seriously. And they're going to be coming in a big way. I was back in Japan a few months ago, and I actually got inducted to a samurai clan that's over 1,000 years old. You know, the mayor of Namie. We've become very good friends since then. That's our sister city, and Namie is going to be the center of hydrogen for Japan, and that's where all the development's going to occur. We're hoping to duplicate that here in Lancaster.
Well, I was just in Japan in February, and I went up on Koyasan Mountain, which is where half the samurai families are buried. And it was an amazing cemetery of 300,000 people, and it's a spiritual center. And so I had gotten my first Toyota Mirai, which is the hydrogen-powered car, back about 4 or 5 years ago. And when I got it, they sent me this nice book, and it showed their 100-year plan for hydrogen. So Toyota has a 100-year plan. So it's a different way of doing business than most American companies, and I think that
It's generational.
yeah, it's generational, and that's the way that we should be looking at things, at all of our problems. Where is this heading 500 years from now? Where are we going? If we're not asking those questions, we're going to kill ourselves by extracting things without looking at the true costs. And one of the things that you raised is the geopolitical cost of oil. The cost of us being dependent upon Saudi Arabia and other oil-producing countries like Russia has obviously resulted in the Ukraine. If we did not have those dependencies, we wouldn't have these problems. So
Let's be clear what did happen with the power of Saudi Arabia. It is pretty clear that high-placed government officials were involved in 9/11. I don't think anybody doubts that anymore. And they got a pass. We forgave them. Didn't even investigate it because we're so dependent on oil. I mean, morality has taken a back seat. And I think that is the most glaring example of it.
Our politics has been so beholden to big oil, and they wiped out so many things along the way, like just here in Los Angeles, the trolley cars that were in existence, and then one of the, I think it was the tire companies, which is related to the oil industry, went off and bought them and then destroyed our entire public transit system.
Yes, that's exactly what occurred.
Yeah. I also kind of wanted to turn to some of your legal battles against PG&E, and I think get an update on what's going on there.
PG&E was a real eye-opener to me. That case was a defamation case, but gathering all of the facts, it was horrifying what PG&E does. They have pled guilty, to over 100 homicides. Criminal pleas. It's not an accident. You don't plead on an accident. It's their conduct was so willful and deliberate that over 100 people they have pled guilty to. Nobody went to jail. Nobody. The fines were significant. I'll give you that. So, but what does that mean? They bought their way out, just like Sempra did with Southern California Gas. People died because of the Porter Ranch gas well explosion, blowout. Died. That's called homicide. Yeah, they just let it go. We got the emails, the different elected officials. They were lobbying during the blowout to lessen the publicity on it. The duplicity of government in that, where they would take the air monitors, put them 8 feet above the ground, only turn them on when the wind was blowing in the other direction. That actually happened. It wasn't turn them on, it was actually take the sample. They took the sample when it was least likely to be there. That's government doing that with them. They have far too much influence with our government. I actually sued Governor Brown for what they did to the water in Kern County. We had 26 pristine aquifers. We now have 4. All of them contaminated by the oil industry. They haven't had to pay one dime for it. PG&E, they put this pipeline, 2 of them. They call it the backbone, for the gas. They buried it 3 feet in agricultural land. They're constantly getting leaks and strikes that have the potential, and in fact twice did. Everything within 600 feet is burnt to a crisp. 600 feet, that's 2 football fields. these are underneath people's houses. It's astonishing to me what they've been allowed to get away with, and continually are allowed to. The trial I did on the defamation, I have never, ever experienced a trial where the law was so irrelevant. You know, I would have got a better, fairer rulings from the president of PG&E.
Wow.
You know, they're that powerful.
Well, I feel like that there needs to be criminal responsibility. Why is it that we don't pull the licenses of PG&E after 100 convictions of manslaughter? I mean, why is it that they get to continue essentially walking free after that kind of incredibly...
Because they pay for the elections.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about how this works. I mean, I'm able to say all this stuff because I don't want anybody's money. I don't need it, you know. I pay for my own campaigns. You know? But most elected officials don't have that ability. If they want to have a job, they have to make radical compromises with these people. I mean, look how powerful they are. They took me off the speakers panel of environmental alternative energy forums. They just gave them money. You can buy anything in this country. Certainly you can buy the truth.